Hello, thank you for joining us for webinar number 7 in our series on environmental health for education. I'm Paul Fenawalt with the Missouri Center for Education Safety, Missouri School Boards Association, and I'm joined today with David Thompson, the Green Clean Institute. And today we're going to be talking to you about I Can't Breathe, Can You?, which is again number 7 in our webinar series. David?
Paul, you'll understand that we've been having these webinars. We've recorded each one of them for you if you haven't been able to join us as you are this morning. We've recorded these for you and archived them on our website. You'll see right here is the site address, and you might want to also take a look at this video here. It's one of our schools that was certified last year. Might show you what the relativity to the green cleaning and being certified really is all about. We've done this for you so that you can go back and look at these webinars, because not everybody can join us like you are this morning.
And again, as you pointed out earlier, in this series, watching these webinars is totally free of charge. You can watch the archive series free of charge. If you want to get some type of a recognition, a certificate for attending this webinar series, that's available to you also at a very nominal fee. And you can learn more about that at the end of this webinar today. You'll see a link to the Green Clean Institute. All the information's on their website.
The reason that we went through the webinar series is to educate you, the people that are actually doing the cleaning, the ones that are responsible for the health of the schools and the children, the staff members, the parents, the teachers, everybody in your community. As we've said before, Paul, 1/3 of the community comes through a public school building. And our focus today is I can't breathe. Now, I'm a chronic asthmatic, and this is very personal to me because when I go in and outside of a building, it is hard for me to breathe. I take around $700 worth of medication every month just to breathe. My question is, are you one of those people that are like me? Are you becoming like me? Or are you one of those ones like me that, I had some trouble breathing, but it didn't get diagnosed?
I think, David, again, everyone can identify with the fact that at some point in your life you've had runny nose, itchy eyes, you just felt miserable, you couldn't breathe. And whenever you have that going on, that pretty much consumes everything you do that day and for that period of time. You certainly can't sit in a school environment and learn if you can't breathe. No.
And this is why we do this. Paul and I are very passionate about this subject. We're trying to bring you the information, put it together in a way that you can grab hold of. This is education. This isn't training. This is education. But we're trying to communicate to you. This is our 3 formats that we run through every webinar. We're going to continue that. This is what we'd like for you to do. Get the information, educate yourself, educate others, and then communicate that. So what I want to start with here is the whole reason for doing this is to reduce that impact of poor indoor air quality. We spend over 70% of our lives indoors. That existing indoor environment, it's got all kinds of pollutants, and that's what we're talking about here. There's reactions that happen whenever your body is inhaling certain contaminants. And Paul, you mentioned a couple of these just a minute ago.
Sure. One of the things, again, you think about breathing, and the old adage, out of sight, out of mind, certainly is not true in the situation here with air quality. Because, again, there's so many things you can't see, but they really affect you. They affect your health, affect everything that's going on.
Well, I guarantee you what, whenever I go in and out of buildings, from the cleaning chemicals, I was at a conference center here not too long ago, and they just cleaned the restrooms with bleach. I couldn't even go to the restroom. I had to go to a different place because the bleach smell was so bad I couldn't stay in there. I was actually coughing and I was feeling a little dizzy from it. If you're a chronic asthmatic, you know what I'm talking about. But folks, even if you're not a chronic asthmatic, you still have these issues. This is what we want to talk about today. Because worldwide, 300 million people suffer from the effects of asthma alone. 300 million. Now, I know that you're trying to grasp hold of that, but let me give you a statistic. 30 million are diagnosed just like myself. And the problem here is I went for a number of years having the same trouble, but I couldn't breathe when I was in places. I thought it was just I was overweight or I didn't exercise enough, and that's what everybody kept telling me. The problem is I wasn't one of those. I was one of those 300 million that hadn't got diagnosed. I was suffering. My question, how many other people are like me?
Well, I can imagine, again, David, in our school environments, school settings, there's an awful lot of children that actually suffer from some form of asthma, but they've not been formally diagnosed, and they may not really, their parents may not be aware that they have a problem. Mm-hmm. But yet they do, and this poor air quality is affecting them in a negative way.
Well, how many of our workers, Paul? I mean, how many of you people that are actually working and doing this job that are using the products are having the same issues? And you know what? It doesn't mean that you're asthmatic. I'm not trying to say that every time that you have a breathing problem, you're asthmatic. But we're talking about things that go into your respiratory system. We'll get into that further here because there are exposures. These are the exposures. When you use chemicals, you are breathing them in. This is the first exposure you're going to have. What you touch is going to be second. What you breathe in is going to have a reaction. And that's what we were talking about just a minute ago.
Well, you think about it, David, again, when you breathe in, it goes almost instantly into your bloodstream through your lungs. Whereas if you eat something, it's got to go through the digestive process, and there's acids and things like that that may negate some of the effects of it and stuff like that. But what you breathe in, just almost instantly, it's into your bloodstream.
Well, you know, there's a difference here when you talk about allergies and asthma. Asthma is what we breathe in. Allergies are primarily what we touch. Not totally, I said primarily. So whenever we touch stuff, we do get it into our bloodstream. And if you have a student, or if you have a child, a grandchild as we have, that have sensitivities to allergens, they do absorb these through the skin. So we're not trying to say that one's more important than the other, but it's the out of sight, out of mind thing that you mentioned. What we touch is what we all think about because it's more visual. What we breathe in is not so visual, but it has as much, and in my case, more importance. To that point, as you said, Paul, the simple solution that we've all talked about through any infection prevention course has been to wash our hands. And we do this routinely. We teach our children this, we teach them to wash their hands, but what do we teach about breathing?
It's not as simple as just washing your hands. You can't just simply...
We don't talk about it because as you said, what we breathe in has direct access to the health impacts from within our body. If you breathe something in and your body starts reacting to it, I had a lady recently that told me she uses scrubbing bubbles at home. Now I know we're talking about you at school, but at home works just as well because our bodies doesn't change just because we're at work or at home. And she was using scrubbing bubbles. She's got a asthmatic child. Well, he ran to the other end of the house and still had effects. And I simply asked her, is your body reacting when you use the scrubbing bubbles? She says, oh yeah. You know, I get a little coffee in my eyes and I kind of feel this taste in my throat. I said, you're having a reaction. Yours is just not having an immediate response. Your body is telling you something. Folks, if your body is telling you something, do something about it. Be proactive, change the procedure. One of the things that you're going to learn as we go through this, and you'll probably learn this fall, is that there is what's now called the Globally Harmonized System, or GHS for short. This is a system that takes the information that we've had previously, the MSDS sheets, everything is changing. But the reason I want to focus on this right at this point is it lists two different classifications for hazards. And this is what we're talking about today. There's physical and health hazards. And I want to show you the difference that they have determined with this new program. In there are 16 physical hazards. Now, these are things that happen to us as a result of an outside influence. I get a burn. I get a chemical that spills and blisters my skin. That's a physical hazard. But now there's 10 health hazards that are identified. And this comes to importantly what we're talking about today, and that is what comes inside my body and what happens after it gets in my body. And so they have separated these two. The health hazards come from exposures from within my body. What you're going to see is you're going to see this new pictogram right here with health hazards. And you see this is a person with a fractured body, and it's in this red diamond. When you see that, you know that that product, whatever it might be, a cleaning product, it could be a product you use at home, it could be something that you don't think about, but if there's a health hazard, if there's going to be a reaction within my body, it's going to help me know it.
Well, and again, I may be a little bit off base here, but I would think, physical hazards is something you're going to know immediately, but maybe it's kind of a short-term problem, whereas health hazards, you may not notice this for a period of time, but yet it's going to have some long-term severe consequences for your health, possibly, and so it's something you really need to be thinking about.
Absolutely, Paul. This is what happened to me. Over years of using chemicals, I thought it was indestructible. 20, 30-year-old kid, and I thought, hey, I could do anything, and it wasn't going to hurt me. All the whole time, what was happening was within my body. What I couldn't see was creating what I now deal with, cannot get rid of, and cost me money. That's budgetary item in my personal budget at home, and it is to you too. If you're not looking at these things within your body, you're setting yourself up for these health exposures later on. To that point is why we are talking about the existing indoor environment. We use existing because this indoor environment already exists, and we're challenged daily as you're cleaning these facilities to actually work within that environment. And what is our job? Well, we need to understand that there's allergens and toxins, just like we've talked about, that accumulate within these buildings. And as they accumulate, we as custodial department, environmental health services, we need to work with that and mitigate those costs, because there are hidden costs.
Yeah, and again, I can't stress enough these hidden costs, things you don't think about. But again, if you have students that can't function normally and do well on tests and things like that, long term, that has some cost there. It's not direct cost, but it's costing you nonetheless.
Well, and those come from, as you were saying, what happens whenever the worker, the teacher, what if the teacher is getting a headache and they're lethargic or they're missing school? Let's not talk just about the students. What about the teacher? When one teacher is out, what has she done or he has done is affected, 30 to 35 students in a room, and how many times a day? If you have increased sick days because your staff is out, it's students that aren't learning. What if the principal is out for several days because of these kind of things? What if you're out? What if you're not taking care of the facility as you should because of these things? These things affect every single one of us because it is health, it is within our body, it is universal, and this is what you need to be thinking about when you come to these. There's two different things we're going to talk about right at this point, and this is what's called SBS, or Sick Building Syndrome. Now, these are where we get those immediate impacts, such as the coughing, the sneezing, the runny eyes, the headaches that we've been talking about. These are what we call acute impacts. They're momentary. They usually go away whenever the allergen leaves. When we leave that area, we're not exposed to it anymore. But then there's a second part of that, and that's building-related illnesses. Now, or BRI, as you've heard. These are when those acute, those immediate impacts turn now residual, and they become chronic. And I relate back to myself here. The acute impacts were all of those symptoms. I had the runny eyes, I had the coughing when I was using the floor stripper, and I just thought it was, I just would need to man up and do the right thing. Well, now I'm one of these people that uses one of these chronically all the time in order to breathe. I can't get rid of this. Now this is that residual long-term effect, and as you said before, Paul, I didn't see it coming, but now I live with it daily. There's hundreds of thousands and millions of people. Now, what can you do? Well, the thing is, if I had known those issues beforehand, hey, I wouldn't have done the same things. It's changing the mindset. Of these 4 items, folks, this is the hardest thing for you to change. It's changing your own mind first. You have to be the one, people aren't going to do this for you. You're going to have to be the one that says, I've got to do something different. You've got to get educated, and then the responsibility is, what are you going to do with it? You got to communicate it. What good is the information if you don't then communicate it to people?
And David, as we said again and again, this isn't about spending more money. This is just about changing your behaviors, changing the way you do stuff for the better. Sometimes it'll save you money.
Absolutely. Everything we've talked about so far this morning, folks, hasn't costed you a nickel other than getting the education. The biggest thing is communicate it once you've got it. You're out there cleaning, and the purpose for doing that cleaning is to remove the exposures. Typically, we talk about tremendously all the time about cleaning the desktops, using the right product, using the right rag, using the right process, using the right machines to do the processes, and making sure. Those are the components of what we do, and yes, they're extremely important, and you do have to have the right tools. You have to have the right education and procedures to do that. But why are you actually doing it? You're cleaning to remove exposures. I'd like to ask a question at this point, because I can hold up this sign. My question is, are you one that can hold up this sign and say that you know how to manage indoor allergies? Because if you're working in a school today, you should be able to do this, and it's becoming more and more important. The school gets paid by students that sit in that desk, and if you're not helping, you're hindering this. What are the conditions in your area? Do you know what the conditions are with the air that you breathe within that area, that building? I mean, we've got schools all over the state, all over the country. This is going to change from place to place. My question here is, if you can't hold up this sign and say you truly know, then maybe you need some more education.
Well, I think it's all about professional pride. Wouldn't you want to be able to hold that sign up and say, hey, I'm embracing best practices. I know what's going on, and I'm on the cutting edge to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to ensure this healthy environment where I work.
Well, and to the point is people don't know. And one of the things is the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America just recently put this out on their website, and they've been doing this for a number of years. But this is from 2013, which is this year, okay? And Mike has said this: it makes good sense to add ER, emergency data, to this study now that it is available, because it tells us so much more. What is he talking about? Before this study started being done, they had, I think it was 23 different criteria, and emergency room visits weren't on there. Now they are. They're seeing higher numbers of visits and hospitalization in one city over another. That helps them to identify that there's a problem. It's a sign that asthma in a community is less controlled than in other places, or that the environmental triggers are worse, or that the patients are not using their medications properly. Oh, I know there's a lot of that goes on. Or that emergency rooms are just too busy with too many patients. This is what we need to find out. How many people that are having the issues like I was having, and that now are going past where I'm at in chronic, and now are going to emergency room? Thank goodness I'm not there, folks. I don't want to be there. Hopefully my education will help me stay from that. But I thought this was interesting. As they've been doing this year, they have now listed the top 10 cities in the U.S. that are on that list for emergency room visits and deaths from asthma alone. I think it's very interesting. If you're in one of these areas, this is extremely more important to you probably than where I am. Thankfully in Missouri, we're not on this list here. We don't want to be. We ask you to do your part, because appearance is actually the result. Many times when I go out to facilities, I see this all the time. They're getting graded by the school boards by appearance. The principal and the school board does their yearly check, and they go, oh, it looks good and it's clean. Well, I'm sorry, folks. I can make dirt shiny, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy. And to that point is health is actually the reason that we're doing cleaning. The reason you're in environmental health services is to provide a healthy atmosphere, one that is safe for the students, safe for the staff, and ultimately safe for you as well. I coined this phrase a number of years ago, and it's very pointed in this particular webinar we're doing. And it says, just to say that a building is clean does not mean it is healthy. But if a building is healthy, it is clean. I've said it hundreds of times before, I'll say it again. I can clean anything, but I have to prove that it's healthy. It isn't just by visual. What we do at the Institute is we certify that people have the information, that they have the knowledge that helps them gain respect within their business. It takes a lot of pride to actually go out and do a little bit more than what everybody else is doing. Whenever you take our manager's course, it helps you to gain recognition within your peers, to be able to lead people to do the right thing, and then to be able to document that you have success within that services organization. Whether it be a school or any other place, you still need to have leadership. The leadership is what directs you, and if at your school that your leadership is not helping you with a direction and giving you a vision, then maybe this is a webinar that they should look at, because it really affects that whole school, the staff and everybody there. Did you know that there's asthma plans in schools?
I'm vaguely aware of that, yes.
Well, and to your point, vaguely aware of it is what most people are. My question is the environmental health services within your facility actually a part of that plan? Do you know what your asthma plan is? If you don't, maybe you're actually the one that is being a negative effect on that plan.
And David, I'm acutely aware that probably often the custodial staff isn't a part of that plan.
You know, I see this all the time. You talk about this and the asthma. I know I'm hitting it real hard today because that's one of the biggest things that we can grab hold of. But there's many more respiratory illnesses and ailments. My question to you is, if you aren't part of the plan or you want to be more of the plan, go to your school nurse and ask her a simple question. How many students every day come to her office and get asthma medication? How many people? A lot of them will tell you some, but the ones that are really, that I want to find out is how many people aren't registered with the nurse. That's just the students. What about all of the staff? What about all the visitors? There's a lot of people that come in that are affected by this. The results of what we do is to get health. This is our whole reason for being. If you're cleaning a facility and you're not getting healthy results, but the building looks shiny, take a look at your absenteeism rates. Take a look at how many teachers are missing school days. If your building has been closed down because of a health-related illness, like MRSA or something like that, maybe your best practices aren't in place. Maybe you're not getting the healthy results. Because when it all comes down to it, doing what we're talking about, being a part of that proactive plan, this is really what true green cleaning is all about. We've made our webinar a little bit shorter today. We just want you to get the points. We want you to also understand, just as we have with every webinar we've done, that you do have benchmarks. At the Green Clean Institute, we have our 180 best practices. This is a standards program that helps you decide what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, where you might want to go. But you do have these, and I hope you would be able to answer this question here. Do you have benchmarks? And I hope you can say you do. Because if you don't, get hold of us, go to our website, you can get them. There are many choices. You know, there are many paths that are laid out. Everybody's on at their own speed. All we ask you is to make the right choices, get on some path, and kind of ramp up the speed you're doing it.
Again, it's about moving forward in a positive direction. Again, if you're watching this webinar, you're aware that this is part of a series of webinars that will be leading up to this fall. The Center for Education Safety is going to be working with the Green Clean Institute to host a technician certification course. You can again actually watch the webinars, receive recognition for that through the certificate of attendance at the webinars, but then also attend this technician certification course and receive some consideration and reduced cost by attending the webinar series here now. As you're aware, we have a Safe Schools and Colleges Conference this fall, October 1st to the 3rd. This is our 7th year for the conference. It's located at Tantera Osage Beach. One of the things we're thinking about doing is shifting gears just a little bit. One of the new things that, as a result of this webinar series, I became aware of is this globally harmonized system, which is an OSHA initiative that's been coming down the road for quite a bit of time. Like 20 years they've been working on developing this globally. But it's just, this year now starts some specific requirements for education, and within 2 years, basically organizations have to be embracing this stuff. And one of the things we're going to do is at our conference actually is to hold a course that GCI is going to teach for us on the globally harmonized system to familiarize you with what this system's about, some of the changes, and again, I think from the perspective of reliability, schools really need to be on board of being aware what this means for them and how they label the chemicals that they have that they use in cleaning and other things, and all the other aspects of it. Also, public safety, responding to incidents and accidents where chemicals are involved. This is going to have also some impacts for them, because again, some of the stuff is 180 for what they're familiar with the hazard classification system that we now use, and the material safety data sheets and things like that. A lot of this stuff is changing. So again, we're going to be doing that this fall at the conference. Then we'll have the technician certification at another point in time yet this fall, so you can actually do both of these.
Yes.
Again, I want to thank you for being a part of this webinar series. Thanking you for taking education safety seriously. Thank you for taking environmental health and education seriously. I'm Paul Fennell with the Missouri Center for Education Safety, and you can contact us through the website or the contact information you saw on the screen. David?
I would like to thank you for listening to us for the last half hour. We really appreciate your attention. If you haven't been able to see our webinars in live time, please go to the archive site. What we're trying to do is bring information to you that is pertinent and timely. The GHS program is a new program for us. It's exposure to us now. There is a time frame on it. By December the 1st of this year, it is an OSHA requirement that all frontline workers be trained on this. So this is why, as Paul mentioned, we're going to make this available here this October, and we hope you can at least join us for that. Next month, we're actually going to talk about, in our 8th webinar, why green cleaning is really financially feasible and responsible. As you can see, we've mentioned it a couple times today. It doesn't cost money to do the right thing for the most part. There are some finances that are needed, but they usually have very big and very far, high-reaching goals. Green Clean Institute says thank you. We appreciate your time today. Have a good day.
Stay safe. Thank you.